I've just been shocked that this hasn't been discussed more, at least in our Democratic Party messaging.
Right, or we could at least say, congrats Trump for banning sports gambling and turn it around on him. Like, just do something.
Yeah.
Just something.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries just says, we're going to show up. We're going to show up and we're just going to be there.
I think the sooner we all get it through our heads and the sooner the political press gets it through their heads, the better. That the future of the Democratic Party will not come from a national organization with the word Democratic in its name. Happy 4th and welcome to a special episode of Concepts of a Pod. If you notice, we are in person. Also have a new face here with us. This is Simone, our new Deputy Digital Director.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really happy to be here and talk about some of the crazy shit going down.
Yeah, I mean, as happy as we can be. Preferably, I wouldn't have to be talking about any of it because it wouldn't be happening, but,
you know,
we take the silver linings we can.
We do take the silver linings that we can. At least we're staying busy.
Yeah, and at least for the moment, we have the freedom to say how we feel about all this stuff, and a lot of work to do to make sure it stays that way.
Exactly, and keeping people informed, for sure.
Yeah, no, because it is getting so much harder with the news. I mean, even, I have a friend who was a producer on one of the Sunday shows, and he said that deciding what gets covered each week is like triaging in an ER.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, you said something about how by the time that Senator Alex Padilla had been arrested at that press conference with Kristi Noem, it was number 3 by 9:30 p.m. on the headlines.
Oh, yeah. And that was, God, that day was, I think, 3 days before the No King's Day protests, which all happened before we bombed Iran and then are now passing the big bullshit bill, because I'm not calling it the big beautiful bill.
Yeah, better name for sure. But it's crazy that was only 3 weeks ago, and here we are on a completely different plethora of topics. It's actually mind-boggling.
Yeah, and I think might be the hardest challenge that we as Democrats face is just dealing with the information overload, taking it all in and dealing with it effectively, because I feel like we're kind of on the sidelines in the media and the press, in Congress even, and not seeing anything about what Democrats are doing in the given moment. But
yeah, Hakeem Jeffries, I think, said earlier today, I saw it on NBC, that they're going to show up and they're going to do everything that they possibly can. And I'm like, they've been saying that since January. Yeah. They've been saying that literally since he was inaugurated. And besides Cory Booker's filibuster, which I will say got him really great press, they're showing up and they're either getting arrested or they're just standing in front of a door when Elon and his Doge minions were taking over the federal buildings, and they just let them pass through them. So I don't really know what showing up means for us at this point.
For Chuck Schumer, it means changing the name of the bill. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I did see that, yes. Oh my God, his very big proud moment. He even posted a clip on Twitter just bragging about it. I thought that was actually insane and almost tone deaf. I'm like, come on. As much as I hate Googling big, beautiful bill updates, at least I know what the name is. If we change it now, it makes it even harder for your messaging moving forward.
God. Yeah, no, and also the way it's like BBB, Build Back Better. It's so obvious that he's playing on it, and we fell right into it and gave it to him. Although, honestly, Big Bullshit Bill is a great way to go with it going forward.
Yeah, that's way better. I was saying ugly ass bill or something like that, but let's stick with the BBB to make it less confusing for voters, especially low info voters who probably still don't know this is happening right now.
Yeah, and I mean, even as a highly informed, high information, not just voter, but someone who works in this space, I find myself struggling to keep up with what's in it, what's not in it. It keeps changing all the time, and I mean, anyone can Google what's in the big, they're going to have to Google it with the real name, unfortunately, but anyone can look up what's in it instead of doing the whole laundry list that everyone else does that the media is never going to cover. I just want to read one supporter comment about the bill, because we, a couple days ago, did a survey, asked our supporters, how is the bill going to impact you? Because, we see all the macro numbers about what it may or may not do to the economy, but I really wanted to get at the heart of how this is going to impact the people who make up our audience, all of you guys who make all of this possible. And yesterday I was reading through these, and there was one that it just made my heart stop. And I think I sat there for 5 minutes before I could even think about what to do next to just take this in, because it just makes it so much more real. Someone said, Without the Medicaid program, I'd die because I'm a liver transplant patient, and there's no way I could ever get the medicine I need to stay alive and stay healthy.
It's just awful, awful.
Yeah, I mean...
And not just is this a viewer and a supporter, this is a human being.
Yeah.
And this is going to be millions of other human beings as well.
Yeah, and as devastating as it is that it's going to be millions, and that should drop your jaw and stop you in your tracks. But in a weird way, I think the sheer scale of the inhumanity, the sheer scale of everything they're doing is what makes this so paralyzing, because I've seen all these articles, I've seen the pictures, I've seen the statistics. Nothing hit me as hard as directly hearing from someone who we personally asked how this is going to impact you, and that's what we need going forward. We need to be asking people themselves.
Yeah, I completely agree, and there is an organization on Twitter right now who is going around on a bus tour across the country and asking folks, like, why is Medicaid important to you? And they have children, elderly folks, just normal adults like us who are like, I'm going to die, my child, I can't afford their insulin without this, all of this terrible, horrible, like, stuff that is totally preventable if they would just knock it off. Like, there is no need for this bill in its entirety.
Yeah, no, why are we even doing this other than to cut taxes for the rich and give Trump a win on paper? Because he can say, I did something big and beautiful.
Big and beautiful. I mean, he loves an alliteration, though I will say he's gotten worse at his nicknames, so
oh, yeah, I mean,
he's faltering in some areas.
I have to say, even like with the New York mayoral, as disgusting as the way they're treating Zohran Mamdani is right now, they're not even doing it well.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, don't even get me started on Kristen Gillibrand's comments. I'm like, as a Democrat, first of all, you screwed yourself when you endorsed Cuomo. Let's be real. I mean, you're somebody who ran for president on women's rights, on being a woman, on like, when you pulled the woman card that much on the progressive side, on the Democratic side, and then not even like 5 years later, I mean, she was running in 2019, early 2020, and you're just going to switch around and do a switcheroo? That's just embarrassed. Like, how are you not just embarrassed?
I'm embarrassed as a Democrat that our party even let it get to the point where we could have a senator endorsing a sex pest for mayor of New York City. Like, this shouldn't have even been an opportunity for any Democrats to endorse this guy, because he shouldn't have been running.
He should not have been running.
And we will get back to New York as well in a little bit, because I want to get into couple reactions from the political world to the big bullshit bill that just took me by surprise. We'll put aside Lisa Murkowski teasing us with the hope of her being a good human only to pull the rug out at the end. But first, John Fetterman. What do you even say?
I've been talking about this with former colleagues and folks who have like worked in PA for a long time. And it's just, it's sad and it's devastating, but at what point do you acknowledge he is not mentally adequate anymore to fulfill this role? And unfortunately, with, you know, campaign and election laws, I don't know the specifics in Pennsylvania, but it takes a shit ton of money and a lot of effort to do a recall election. But he's sitting senators last for 6 years, and he was elected in 22. I believe I was with Next Gen America at that time, and we were doing texts into Pennsylvania, and there was so much hope and joy. And then, I mean, we kind of made the mistake of really leaning into the sweatshirt stuff. I think we gave him a little bit too much credit for that in hindsight, but it's sad. And I feel for his family and his staffers and former staffers going from working with somebody who you originally respect. It's just disappointing. And that's one of the reasons people have no faith in their government, because you elect somebody and, you know, despite the circumstances, if they are failing you at inconceivable records. He wanted to go to the beach.
I know, that clip, my jaw dropped when I saw it. I'm like, I missed my beach trip. It's like, okay, you're a U.S. senator. You are one of 100 people who has the power and the responsibility and took that oath. And you're like, I missed my beach trip. Come on, man.
I mean, there's not going to be a beach if this bill passes. I mean, look at the cost to energy. I mean, God forbid, Republicans and the GOP and MAGA won't even admit climate change is real. But dude, the beach. And then next week he's got all this other stuff scheduled. So like, guess you missed your beach trip, but there are Americans literally worried that they're gonna die, that their family's gonna die. And you're sad about missing the beach trip with your family who has said that they are worried about you and they feel like they don't know you and recognize you anymore as a person. Not very convincing, I don't think.
God, and I'm just going to say one thing that I forget who some Republican I know was being snarky and was trying to flex about how, like, someone said that, I kid you not, people think that the stroke Fetterman suffered, which was so unfortunate. And I mean, I hope he gets the help he needs. Like, that is the basis of this entire conversation. But somebody said to me that it was interesting that the stroke freed him of the woke mind virus. And it's like,
God.
Think about what you just said. You just bragged about how someone took on your political ideology because they had a debilitating stroke.
Yeah.
What does that say about your ideology? Like,
I mean, and look at RFK Jr. admitting to having a brain worm at some point. I'm like, that's your winning hero? That's what you believe in, is losing your brain mass and what builds us as human beings? I mean, the brain makes you coherent and all this other stuff, but it also gives you your emotions and your compassion.
Even Donald Trump, who used to be a Democrat, was all in the Hollywood world, and then his show tanked, and he needed a new reality audience who would eat up his stuff, so he realized that racism sells in Republican politics and made that his domain. And now he's just 10 years into a narcissistic crash out, and then similarly, you got Elon Musk, who's the guy who I would credit for bringing EVs to mass market.
Oh, like, 1,000%, yeah.
Put aside his craziness, what that company did is
incredible.
I mean, the cars suck, but so did the Ford Model T. It's still the first one, and it's what we build on. But he similarly crashed out over just, I think for him it was COVID and then not getting invited to a White House event by Biden in 2021. Yeah. Sent him down the Republican rabbit hole, and
that and maybe some K.
Yeah, that too.
Maybe a little bit of that too, but it's embarrassing now that he is frantically tweeting and posting, oh, well, now I'm going to fund primaries against anybody who votes for this big, beautiful bill, the big bullshit bill. It's like, okay, well, now anybody who takes your money, I'm immediately not going to vote for. In fact, I'm going to actively campaign against. How can you literally lay off 20,000 or more federal employees, like people who make our average day-to-day lives easier, whether or not we notice it? And then it's July 2025. How do you go within barely 6 months, completely pivoting? You lose so badly in Wisconsin, you embarrass yourself to no end, and you immediately are like, well, now I'm going to turn around and give the money to the Democrats. You have no reliability now. You have no...
I don't think he's going to give it to the Democrats. I think he's going to get a bunch of his Twitter stands. He's going to recruit people to run for office and try to start a third party. And
yeah, well, what did he call it? Like
the America Party.
The America Party. I was like, America something.
Yeah, it's just the America Party.
The America Party.
I mean, it's the same party that was a super PAC at the time, the America PAC, that was bribing people to vote for Trump, which...
Oh, my God.
Also, I don't know if you remember, Elon didn't endorse Trump until Trump got shot.
Yes, I do remember that. And that was right before Biden dropped out, correct?
Yes.
So that's when it just, I guess completely a year ago, July, was a complete pivot in everything. It changed everything.
Oh, yeah. And it all happened in the span of like a week, too. It was Trump got shot the weekend before the RNC.
Yes.
And then they had the RNC.
Yeah. Well, Trump got shot. He got a graze on his ear, allegedly.
We cannot
let
our viewers debate that in the comments.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna take a position.
That's fair.
But while we're talking about different reactions from people that aren't being talked about as much to the big bullshit bill, I saw something interesting that was actually a lot of the kind of less politically inclined, quote unquote, like manosphere types of influencers and people in those audiences that Democrats have been trying to understand are actually really upset about a little key provision in the new Senate version of the bill that could give Democrats a really unique opportunity to message not on how we support these things, because we can debate it another time, but at least on how Trump is the one ruining it, given that the people who like this stuff skew towards Trump, and it's gambling and sports betting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, within the past 5-10 years, it's grown exponentially nationwide. I mean, I'm from Arizona originally, and I grew up there, and it's huge out there with everything, spring training, the casinos, all of that stuff. And I was shocked that when you had mentioned it, I hadn't even noticed about that provision, and I'd been watching it and tracking all these updates all week. I've been reading articles to share with friends who need talking points for their family members, and I'm like, how are we overlooking something that is so easy to message to the people we need to have this information? It's going to affect them. And I can read this quote from NBC, but they said, various online accounts of the Senate version of the massive piece of legislation that is ping-ponged back to the House of Representatives indicate that a change to the tax rules for gambling could make it much harder to ultimately turn a profit. And you mentioned, you can talk a little bit more about that 90% cap.
Yeah. It's basically, and I won't get into the details again because we're not tax experts here, and
clearly.
We try not to speak on things too heavily that we don't have the expertise on, because there's just so much misinformation floating around that we don't need to add to it. But from what I understand about this, essentially in the past, gamblers of any kind who were doing it professionally could write off their losses, and I mean, you're only taxed on your net winnings, but now, apparently, according to this bill, you can only write off like 90% of your losses, which means that if you're either a professional poker player or someone who bets way too much in sports betting, even if you come out on top, you could end up owing more in taxes than you ever made in the first place, because the math doesn't math, and like everything else, it's very clear that the Republicans used ChatGPT to write this.
Oh my gosh, I mean, they're using it to read it. They're using Grok to check what is going through it. I mean, which congressperson mentioned that? But it's completely manufactured, and something that's so shocking to me is that even at the highest level, I mean, there are major celebrities with large presences such as like just Drake, for example, because I remember he just was so loud about his sports betting, and I'm like, there are people who do spend large amounts, millions of dollars, and they don't know about this either, and they're not talking about it either. I mean, not that I know whether or not Drake, of all people, is going to make a political statement, but y'all, this impacts you way more than some of the other folks like me. I don't gamble.
Oh, yeah, no, me either. It's
but
not my thing, but
I still care because I know people who do. I went to college with people I do. Like, some people just do it sparingly, and that's their little side like hobby. And you're not going to make any more money that way. And we're already seeing an issue with not being able to have money in the pockets of the American people because there's a wealth hoarding problem in this country, clearly. So I've just been shocked that this hasn't been discussed more, at least in our progressive and Democratic Party messaging.
Right, or we could at least say, congrats Trump for banning sports gambling and turn it around on him. Like, just do something. Just something.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries just says, we're going to show up. We're going to show up, and we're just going to be there. Okay, can you be there with a bullhorn telling them that the sports gambling money that y'all are making is not going to be as feasible anymore? Like, let's be real.
Yeah, but on that note, I think we should take a minute to discuss, both institutionally and on the grassroots level, what Democrats have been doing lately. Because it's been, I mean, we've talked about a lot of news. Everything we've talked about so far has been about what Trump's doing to us. But we're really not getting much coverage of what we're doing to fight back, and it's leading a lot of our supporters, I see in our comments constantly, to tell us they don't see us doing anything at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, we, New Digital Now as an organization, are doing a ton of work behind the scenes to read your comments and incorporate them into our messaging so that we can push the party to do more, not just go farther left without reason, but to do more to strategically figure out what we can do to meet this moment. And with that, I want to look back on the year and tell you a little bit about kind of the moments this year that have energized our audience and have made our audience feel like Democrats at the national level are actually showing up. And the first one you mentioned was Senator Booker's filibuster on April 1st.
Yeah.
It was really exciting to use New Digital Now's technology to be able to bring a live stream of the filibuster to all of our audiences directly by text message, because I don't know if you've noticed, if you were just watching cable news that day, you wouldn't have known about it until he broke the record.
Oh, 1,000%.
They weren't covering it all day.
Nobody was covering it. It was mainly online, and I mean, TikTok kind of, I was surprised by how prominent it became on TikTok. So a lot of digital staffers who worked on that end, fantastic job. But you don't see it all day. He's going on and on, talking and talking. And then he went on, I think, to vote for a couple of bills that I personally didn't think he should be voting for. And it's just like we have some of these Democrats who also like voted to put these cabinet members in place that are screwing us over. Like, why are we voting to confirm Kristi Noem a couple months ago? Like, look at where we're at now. She shot her dog and bragged about it.
I know.
Like, how are you killing puppies and being elected? It is so insane to me. And then any time you have somebody who on the left or as a Democrat is running for office, they are criticized to the highest degree. It's just frustrating at the end of the day.
It is frustrating to believe in the right thing and actually want to do good for the world when the other side just cares about themselves. And as for the shooting the dog thing, the only thing I can think of, and this just popped into my head, is a sick, twisted thought. But, I mean, look at the role she has right now and what she's doing, this alligator Alcatraz. It's almost like their base views immigrants as dogs and wants someone to shoot them.
Oh,
and
I
that's
would
what
agree
this
with
is.
that.
And it is dehumanization. It reminds me of, and I think back to my Holocaust education because I don't say this lightly. I know people are going to have their thoughts about this, but I say this as my great-grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. He survived Auschwitz. I saw the tattoo on his arm, and I've actually been to Auschwitz once, and I saw alligator Alcatraz, and I saw some discourse about someone on Twitter called it alligator Auschwitz. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, I did not see that one.
It was a leftist on Twitter who called it that, and I have to say, wrestle with the use of that word. I have been to both Alcatraz and Auschwitz, just Alcatraz as a tourist and Auschwitz on a very meaningful Holocaust remembrance trip. And I saw the pictures of what they built in Florida. I have to say, looks a lot closer to the concentration camp than it did to Alcatraz. And that's not to downplay what happened at Auschwitz, because also, if you may not know, there were two Auschwitz camps, the extermination camp and the labor camp. And to be clear, I'm comparing it to the labor camp. It's not a gas chamber. But the fact that we are running a concentration camp on American soil.
In the same state as Disney World, that is the theme park capital of the world. And down the road, just drive down the I-4, whatever freeway it is that I got into an accident once, like, that's where we're putting this. That is the American dichotomy. That is, well, not even a dichotomy, I mean, maybe it's two sides of the same coin, the capitalism and the need to just dehumanize anyone we disagree with or who looks different than us or who we want to literally get rid of and put out of sight, out of mind.
Actually, I would push back on it being an American thing. I would call it a human thing because
That's fair.
It's been true throughout all of human history. And American history is turbulent, it's rocky, it's constant ebbs and flows. And in reality, what this is another step on that long journey of disentangling ourselves from the horrors of the British Empire, because
1,000%.
all of this vitriol, racism, and all, we inherited all that from them. And as much as we say,
I mean, pretty sure that's where my family came from. I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. Like, it's in my blood, and I'm aware of that. I know that I have certain privileges and that I've come from Europe, and that's where my family's from. And I've contributed to this colonization, and it continues to pump the blood into the heart of what's happening today.
Yeah, no, and it's, I mean, but again, your family were immigrants too, and they resisted against that. I mean, if they came here because the British sent them here, because that was the only way to live in the British system, and then they decided, you know what, we're not doing this anymore, throw the tea in the harbor, fight back, and that's how it starts. But 250 years down now, we're still on that journey and still disentangling ourselves from that legacy of imperialism more than we think. And I mean, even when we tried to do it differently, the founding fathers built on what they knew, and it all takes progress. And I remember looking at the Jefferson Memorial, there's a quote, I don't have it exactly, but something to the effect of that essentially future generations will see the things we see as normal and do away with them because they're evil, and that is progress. And it's just interesting coming from a man who owned slaves, and it's almost like he knew it was not right, but there's only, and I hate to say so much you can do at once, but he got rid of the king, and now we ask ourselves, do we want to be purists and let the king take over because not all the Democrats agree with everything we say, or do we want to stand up and say there's no more kings here?
Yeah, and that's a big problem we're seeing. And I mean, when we look at just influencers and certain folks across the country, there's a lot of people who will talk about the NYC mayoral primary and just like in the context of everything and be like, well, it's not enough. It's not enough. We need a revolution. Like, revolution means more deaths, means more blood, means more pain. I mean, I grew up in America. I grew up watching movies. There's 5 war movies that come out a year. Like, my fiance is a veteran. Like, do we know what a revolution looks like? Because it's not that we're just gonna walk up and, I mean, even January 6th, the weird coup of what it was, just completely chaos, people still died.
Yes, and that is the closest we have seen in this country to the revolution leftists are talking about.
Exactly.
Even if we don't agree with them, that's what a revolution looks like.
Exactly.
I mean, they were calling it a revolution. Yeah. That's what they were calling it. And
that's what they were going in there for. That's what they were screaming about. And so it's really difficult to try to have conversations when there is this purity politics problem where, listen, there are things that Chuck Schumer and I don't always agree on, and I'm not happy with him right now. But at the end of the day, who's currently elected, that's what we're working with. Yeah. AOC has to work with these people. Yeah. Like, these progressives, these young progressives in state legislatures that are being elected and in their local communities, they have to be able to work together.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just how it works. So you need to understand you can have these values, but you also need to have the foresight to know that you have to make compromise. That's what government is.
Yeah, you got to be pragmatic. And if you want to just yell from the sidelines, run a protest movement. Be the executive director of a protest organization. Don't run for Congress if you don't want to do the job of Congress. It's the same as Fetterman, who wants to be at the beach. Wanting to... Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, Cori Bush is a good example. Sleeping on the steps of the Capitol. I mean, I get it, got a lot of attention, but you are one of 435 people in a country of 300 million who has the privilege and responsibility of a seat in that building. You have a seat. You have something that most people don't have, that very few do, that privilege to impact things, and you'd rather sleep on the steps because you don't get your way 100% of the time.
It's really hard because people see that and they have all of these different plethora of personal opinions on it, and our biggest struggle, just as a party in general, is the messaging of everything.
Yeah. As people who have a responsibility to drive the narrative, we have to embrace the tools we have to do so instead of putting on a purity show.
I wish that, I know with New Digital Now, we're transforming the way that this party does digital work, but something I've noticed is when 2020 came around, I was an organizing corps 2020 fellow in the summer of 2019. And so they taught us how to do high traffic canvassing and door knocking. And I was like in 110 degree heat. But then 2020, when I hopped onto that legislative campaign in Arizona, it was completely remote. Like, I wasn't trained necessarily on anything but like minivan apps. So then I had to learn all of these new things. And there's been so many iterations of these different SMS programs and all this fun stuff. And what we're seeing is that these core major wealthy organizations and systems that we have aren't willing to take risks to be innovative, because in a couple of years, we're going to have a completely different electorate. Yeah. Like, Gen Alpha is about to start voting, and I don't know if I've seen a single prominent popular think piece on how Gen Alpha feels about things, because these are kids who have grown up basically completely under Trump. Yeah. Their whole lives.
And their first memory in politics was Joe Biden telling them they couldn't see their friends.
Exactly. And how are we going to be able to tackle that if we're focusing on, and not New Digital Now, clearly, but there are other organizations that are just so risk averse that they are just still putting in money to something that worked in 2022. Like, let's even talk about John Fetterman's race, or even the Markeyverse all the way back in 2020. That's not going to work in 2026 in the exact same way. And you and I even discussed, like, not every campaign strategy fits all. It's not a one-size-fits-all strategy.
No, not at all. And I think, again, the ideological divide, too, is so pointless because both on the left and on the center, you have people who are willing to do the work and people who just want to complain. And I think that should be the new divide in the Democratic Party. And I think is going to be our thing is that we will work with anyone who wants to do the work and who's willing to get messy and disagree and compromise and not just grandstand, but actually do things. And I truly believe, I've said this to a few people now, and I think the sooner we all get it through our heads and the sooner the political press gets it through their heads, the better, that the future of the Democratic Party will not come from a national organization with the word Democratic in its name. Because the staff and the leadership, I'm not talking about the elected officials, I'm talking about the career staffers who have worked their way up in the political establishment, are averse to anything that they can't prove has already worked, because if it fails, it's on them, and that creates this fear. So what ends up happening is, and I worked for a National Democratic Committee, and I saw this firsthand, that we wouldn't do anything until some other org proved it was successful, and then my boss would be like, oh, go do that. But when I pitched something like the work we're doing now, it was, no, we can't do that because we don't have proof it's going to work. And it's like, nothing's going to ever work if we don't do anything unless we have proof that it does.
Exactly. It's a huge problem that we're having.
Yeah, no, and it's why I loved the No Kings movement so much, because it was, New Digital Now was actually fortunate enough to be involved in the national organizing of it, and when I was on those organizer calls, first of all, there were no official Democratic organizations anywhere, which is why there was a free flow of ideas, but they were also so organized and so disciplined and so enthusiastic about making sure that this movement did something new and unique. And I'm actually going to bring in our friend Liam from the Blue Anchor Project, who did a lot of their national media, and have him tell you more about how all that worked behind the scenes.
That's so exciting.
Hey, Liam.
Hello.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks so much for being here. We were just telling the audience a little bit more about the No Kings protest and the organizing behind it, the grassroots nature of the movement, and we wanted to get a little bit more from you on what that was like in the planning of it all and what's next for the movement, because as we know, the official Democratic Party is not involved. It's all of us as grassroots organizers taking the reins, and so what's next?
Well, it was interesting behind the scenes, let's just say that. It was a lot of work. There's about 250-ish nationwide groups that were a part of this, I think even more, and it was truly a collective, collaborative effort. They were coming in from all walks of life, every which way, shape, or form across the country. It's very heartening and wonderful to see how many people, millions upon millions of people, came together to say, we do not put up with kings in this country, and we stand for our democracy, and we will fight tooth and nail for our democracy. So that was one aspect of it. As from Blue Anchor Project's standpoint, we were on the comms team. So yours truly ended up being the face of the entire movement internationally except Britain. I don't know why. But I was doing live on the field interviews in Boston for Canada. I did some live radio interviews earlier that week. I did a couple interviews for Japan, which was interesting. And then I chatted with a couple reporters from the Netherlands, from Germany, and from France. And then I had a live interview in Australia the night after we had all the protests. So it was fascinating. And it was amazing, just it's like, we're doing this one little movement, and the amount of people that want to be engaged, it was so awe-inspiring. And also just kind of like surreal. Here we are, having started, last November, like 9 months ago, and already we're leading a national, international, really, movement against authoritarianism. So we're going to try to keep that momentum going while obviously still being humble. So our next day of action that we're going to be participating in, and very honored to be one of the partners and be on the comms working group as well, is the Good Trouble Lives On Day of Action on July 17th. That is commemorating John Lewis's life, and what we are doing is we are going to be showcasing how America is great, to use Trump's language, and that is the people. It's what makes all of us who we are, our neighbors, our friends, our commitment to civic duty, our commitment to our democracy and our constitution and our way of life, which is under threat. And like, I'm not saying some crap that the alt-right crazy would be like, oh, my Lars. No. It's like actual life. It's not like fake made up shit that they are obsessed with to make themselves feel better. It's actually the work that we are doing is ensuring that everyday folks like us, people watching at home, that your rights are enshrined and that they will not be taken away or anything else these authoritarians try to do, and we'll fight tooth and nail to ensure that they never win.
Yeah, and that media work is so important, especially internationally right now, because America's image on the world stage is at such risk with Trump just making us all look like fools. And I mean, I know I see comments on TikTok from Canadians being like, we understand it's not all of you. And I think it's so important right now to make sure that the rest of the world knows we're worth saving, especially as wars start to break out.
Exactly. We don't want that either. I don't want my tax money personally to be bombing people or like spending on these massive private contracts and basically giving money to Elon Musk anytime he wants it.
Yeah.
It's just, we are worth saving. And I do appreciate that, there are other like folks on TikTok who live in the United States and they'll add in their username like SOS with the American flag as a way to show like, we don't want this. We're also scared. That was what unites us just as humans in general and internationally. Like, we're all just trying to survive, and it's hard. We've been trying to fight back, and we're going to continue to fight back, and it's already making small steps and differences, whether we see it locally more than we see it federally. But it's just important that we keep speaking out and talking to these other organizations and newsrooms across the world.
Yeah, and kind of to tie in my conversations with all these international folks, I can tell you they are appalled at what's happening in our country. They see America as the guiding light of democracy, and here we are having it try to be destroyed. And they are appalled. They're scared. They are incredibly concerned. And, when I was chatting with the Australia folks, they were joking, if you ever need to escape, you're more than welcome to come here. They're a hoot and a half. You say good day to them and they love it. I love them. They're absolutely adorable and the sweethearts. So, it's like that type of camaraderie is just from trying to be ourselves and standing up for what's right. No matter where you are, you can be in Maine, you can be in California, you could be in Japan, Australia, Canada, UK, Germany, heck, Russia, and people there would still welcome people who support civil rights and who support democracy.
Yeah, and in addition to that too, just a real quick note, there's also Americans in those countries, whether they are deployed out there or they just have gotten a job or they married somebody. There are American citizens who are still probably active voters as well. You can vote internationally depending on your circumstances. And it's important that they know we're trying at home too. So that if they ever do decide to come back, if they want to bring their future children back to where they're from, it's important they know we are fighting on the ground as well.
Yeah, and that's why it was so inspiring to see all of those American flags at all of those protests like we talked about, because this organizing, this activism, this push for change, that's what America is, not Trump and his wannabe dictatorship. Because I gotta say also, shout out to the US Army, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but they did their part on No King's Day too, because their commander-in-chief ordered them to give him a military parade. He wasn't very specific with his order, and he pictured a North Korea style, all-out extravaganza. What he got from the Army was a Smithsonian-style history lecture on the history of the Army and its place in America. The soldiers were interacting with the people who were there, and it all really looked pretty, honestly, watching the video, it felt like going to an event put on by the Smithsonian. Whether or not that's true, and anyone who is involved, let me know, but I truly want to believe that that was their act of silent protest.
Oh, whoever got the squeaky tank deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, you know who got that. They're like, which is the tank that will annoy him the most? Ah, yes, the squeaky one. You know it. You know, I have a couple friends who serve in the army, and I can tell you that they are very patriotic and they do their part to be able to stand up for our Constitution.
Yeah, and I can speak to Los Angeles with the National Guard just really quickly. When I was at the protests in downtown Los Angeles on No King's Day, they're kids. They were so many kids. They were kids, like young people of color. And of course, like there are some protesters who are yelling at us, and like clearly there is a lot of issues with what they have to do, but everybody has their own reason that they have enlisted, whether it's really a patriotic reason or if it's a financial reason, or they're guaranteed, well, they're promised citizenship. And so it really broke my heart to walk by these kids who literally are just standing there and they have to stick straight-faced, and they looked like they could not have been more than 19 years old. Like, these are the kids who have grown up in Trump's America, and they're afraid too. And I can't speak for all of them because there are some bad actors in our military, and our military doesn't always do great things, and lots of people have their own opinion, but these are also people. Like, these are also people who are being forced to do things that against their own people, like against their own community.
There are also people who can very easily be convinced to vote against this shit the next time an election comes around because they are personally impacted by it. The person they vote for isn't just their president, it's their boss.
It's their boss, exactly. And so I'm hoping to see more conversations with people who have left the military or have this perspective of, you know, what it means to be commanded by this person who's basically just crazy.
I call him the toddler in chief.
The toddler in chief.
Toddler in chief.
And not only that, but somebody who avoided the service himself.
Oh,
And
exactly.
it was actually kind of awesome when I turned on the live stream of the military parade for like 2 seconds to see what it was like. And I just happened to catch the minute where, as the soldiers are going by him, they were playing the song Fortunate Son, which I think you know that song, is literally about the draft and how rich people could get out of it.
Yep.
And he's just like kind of nodding along because he thinks much with Born in the USA and Reagan, and Trump did this too, but a lot of people don't understand that those Vietnam-era protest songs used a patriotic tone and melody for the sole purpose of getting people to say those protest lyrics with the same enthusiasm that our warmongers have.
Exactly. It's just a different version of propaganda, but in a sense where it's more empowering for the people.
Yeah, and that really leads into what we as Democrats need to do going forward and what's next for us. Whether it's our local elections, the New York mayoral, where we saw a huge groundswell of energy around Zohran Mamdani, and like him or don't like him on the ideology, we actually are not going to take a position on that local election where none of us live in New York.
Exactly.
And none of
I've
us.
been to New York 3 times.
Yeah. But what I will say is that clearly he captured attention by being authentic to who he is. We're about to see a bunch of Democratic consulting shops try to recreate that campaign. And I'm just going to put out that warning right now. If you try to be something you're not, you'll fail.
1000%. Without authenticity, especially on our side.
Yeah, and depending on who you are, that may look different. I saw something on Reddit. It was a very funny story about how a pediatrician convinced an anti-vax mom to vaccinate the kids. And I think it's just a good lesson on meeting people where they are and accepting that even if we have to say things that we don't necessarily believe, sometimes you have to meet someone's premise in order to convince them of your conclusion. And so this doctor came in, the mom was talking to the nurse about all these conspiracy theories, 9/11, moon landing, whatnot, and the nurse looks at the doctor's like, good luck with this one.
Yeah.
And the doctor gives her a smirk, walks into the room, they get to the vaccination stuff, the mom's like, oh no, we don't want that, gives the whole RFK spiel. Doctor takes one look at the mom and says, ma'am, did you ever consider that anti-vaccine stuff is propaganda from the Russians and Chinese designed to weaken the overall health of the American youth for the next Cold War?
And so that's what works. That's what matches their perspective of the world.
Yes, because they think they see everything as a conspiracy theory. And her brain, when it went through her conspiracy logic circuit, that theory actually makes a lot more sense than the vaccines have microchips from Bill Gates to give you autism.
Exactly. And that's also why I always encourage people, especially folks that just kind of have like a political hobbyism online, you need to have enough perspective that you can only gain from talking to people. Sign up for a Canvas shift. You can do it from home. Do one phone banking shift, one door knocking shift, because once you actually talk to people in person that do not share the same values as you, one, in-person conversations are almost always less futile than being online. And two, it teaches you how to approach different perspectives of the same issue and move forward with that. And that's something I think as a movement overall that we're lacking, because we have been inside for too long since 2020. We aren't putting as much into grassroots campaigning as we should be. I mean, I know Ken Martin and the DNC are trying, and there are lots of fabulous organizations that are really trying to fundraise to get more work locally. But you cannot speak on whether a certain messaging is wrong or not if you've never tried to use that messaging with a person that you don't already know agrees with everything you think. If you surround yourself with people who only have the same ideas as you, you will never learn and you will never be able to convince anyone else of anything. You're in an echo chamber just like they are.
Oh, absolutely not. And then looking at the more macro scale, because obviously individual conversations are the best thing that we can do, but in the meantime, as a national organization, what we're working on is rebuilding our digital ecosystem to allow those conversations to happen in cyberspace. And it starts with the text messages, which you get 10, 20, 30 of a day asking you for money, but they don't even have the technology to take in your response, what you think. So what we at New Digital Now are doing is building an ecosystem where we can ask you how you feel, you can tell us, and then we can respond to that. We can get in front of the camera and put this out for you and tell you what we think about what you're saying and how it can be incorporated to the future.
Yeah.
We're so grateful for our audience who has made this possible with your thoughts, your comments, and your financial support that most importantly allows us to do this completely independently without any kind of corporate overlords telling us we can or can't say certain things. I mean, I don't know if you saw CBS just settled with Trump for $16 million for doing the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. And it's like, there's not even an admission of guilt in that settlement. It's just a bribe and an acceptance that we are not going to be an independent media organization anymore.
Yeah, and just to tie in there quickly, Blue Anchor Project, and that's what I'm very proud of what Blue Anchor Project does, that it combines exactly what you two are saying. Through our partnership with y'all at New Digital Now, we have curated a digital ecosystem to be able to really ensure that we are listening to people and implementing that in the field. That's why we host our town hall series, our listening tour series. And what our listening tour series does is we go to any community people want us to go into, and we ensure that their voices are heard, and we give them a space to have those conversations that are needed. We have folks who are Democrats, Independents, Republicans, and anywhere else in between. They all come and they have these deep conversations, and they actually all get together and they all are for democracy, and it's really empowering. And then we take what they have said and what they would like to be heard, and then we send those concerns directly to their representatives, and we force the representatives to have to listen to them. And it is amazing how powerful just amplifying people's concerns can be. So that's why we're very proud over here at Blue Anchor Project to be able to be going on this listening tour, not only across the Northeast, but our goal by the end of 2026 is to be across the nation. I mean, we've gotten requests from Hawaii, Anchorage, Alaska, to Florida, to California, to Fort Kent, and then from Michigan to Texas and everywhere else in between. I think we may have gotten a request from Puerto Rico. I'm not positive. I think American Samoa. Like, there are so many people across the country that want to be heard and have these deep conversations. So that's why we're so grateful to be able to partner with you guys, because you guys offer such a fantastic digital backend and a digital anchor. I had to use the term. We're on the ground, you know, we like to get into the mud and be able to really figure out what's going on, and to be able to ensure that people's voices are heard, not only digitally, but also in person as well.
We're so glad you're doing that work, and in a time where I mean, Donald Trump has turned Washington into a reality show. It's being run not by what benefits people, but by what gets him clicks, ratings, and tickles his personal fancy as the guy behind the big chair in The Apprentice. And it
what gets
should
him
really
the most amount of attention, and he's obsessed with it. And instead of actually having statesmen, we have stakesmen, if you think of it as Trump stakes.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the, also something I want to highlight for this is with this digital anchor and the system that we're building is what we're cutting out is all of the digital slop that we are not being able to decipher through. Even like the DNC, they can't decipher all the time what's a bot, what's an AI response, who's being paid to say what. But when we have a system that we are directly talking to people and there is nothing else coming in that is being paid by Russia or paid by Elon Musk or whatever, we are blocking them out and actually able to have these real conversations with folks to be able to expand to helping out grassroots organizations as well. And I think that's something that I don't think a lot of these other organizations are as prepared for and are not prioritizing.
Oh, no. And beyond that, now in this reality TV era of short form video, too, we're not just having these conversations, but we're filming them and putting them to video so that we can put them out there and start to compete against that right-wing ecosystem.
Yes.
And start to get in the feeds of those people who are not political, but they are on YouTube watching sports betting videos all the time, and they need to know that the big bullshit bill is going to stop them from being able to bet anymore.
Yeah, and the ongoing conversation of who's going to be the left Joe Rogan, it's all of us. It has to be all of us at this point. There is so much misinformation in the world coming from everywhere, from every angle. It has to be us. It has to be our viewers continuing to support us and engaging with us and giving us our perspective and just posting every single time when we want to be heard. Because otherwise, if we just wait for this mysterious person to come out of nowhere, it's never going to happen.
No, it's, I mean, be the change you wish to see. And
yeah, that's my Facebook bio.
Is it really? That's so funny. But we're so happy to have you on the team and so excited to be putting out a lot more content. We'll be back with more regular updates now that we've been able to take in so much of your feedback and build the foundation for this. And we'll be bringing you more updates from Liam on the ground and from us in cyberspace and from all of the new partner organizations that we'll be bringing to the table to build this network.
These are the organizations that determine the narrative for the 2026 and the 2028 elections. It has always been this way. It's why you don't ever see any parties pretty much doing anything in the years immediately after elections because they're lazy and they don't know what to do. So when the majority narrative comes out of these outside groups like us, they co-opt the messaging. So what you are actually really empowering by supporting either New Digital Now, Blue Anchor Project, or both of us is really what is going to be the core message that not only progressives, but the entirety of the Democratic Party and the left-wing spectrum of the entire political apparatus of the United States of America is going to be using to fight right-wing extremism.
Well said.
I don't think I could add much more to that other than let us know in the comments down below what you think, what you want to see from us. If something we said just pisses you off and you want to yell at us, that's what we're here for too. And
go for it.
Please bring it on.
Yeah, and just want to take one more minute to say thank you to all of our supporters and especially all of our donors who have given us the support that allows us the freedom to take this stand with you. And we're so honored that you trust us to guide you in this activism, and we're looking forward to working with you to hopefully fix this mess. And
it's not a hopefully, we will fix this mess.
Yes.
We will.
We will.
Hopefully do it quickly.
Yeah, every day is a new building block.
It will only work if we all do it together.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your support at a time where it's hard financially for a lot of us. It's now more important than ever because every single piece of effort counts.
Simone, thank you so much for joining the team.
Thanks for having me. This is fantastic.
And Liam, thank you so much for joining us from the ground. And
Well,
we are
thank you
looking
so much
forward
for
to seeing
having
what's
me
next
here.
for you too. Always.
Yeah, I'm
happy.
excited. We're going to make some good trouble, as we always do. The universe and the world is never ceasing to amaze me how much the small group of concerned and empowered citizens can change the world.
It's the only thing that ever does. So let's
Truly.
get to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you all, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.